Fancy Thinker. I'm Jared, and we have done it. We are done. We have finished The Darkness That Comes Before, The Prince of Nothing, Book 1 by Oscar Bakker. And we have completed Part 5 called The Holy War. And just an overall thought on that. It's interesting that this part is called The Holy War, and there wasn't much fighting. When you have something called war, you think, okay, there's going to be, battles and there's going to be stuff like that. But most of it was actually just set up for battles to come. I think, in the second book, it was interesting that this part was mostly just an explanation of the build up to war, the purposes behind this holy war, a greater explanation of who all is involved, and a convergence of sorts of all the actors that we've come to know so far in this book on one place that's going to move this war forward. And so it was very interesting that a section called The Holy War was actually fought in the mind, not on the field. So that was interesting. So I just want to say I really enjoyed this book. It was fantastic. The setting is outstanding. So and I like what Baker's doing so far. To get into some of the notes here. Let's see here. Early on here, Akamian is he's around this guy Proyas. He has Akamian with him as a magical advisor or what have you, and plus he's his former student. So Proyas and Akamian realizes that Proyas suffered as all men of high purpose must. The endless exchange of principles for advantage. No triumph without remorse, no respite without siege, compromise at the anxious compromise. And this is how people in power get broken down in a way that they need to continue to make compromises to keep their power. And that's very, very interesting their observation. And because Proyas is supposedly, supposed to be pure of faith and all that stuff. And we'll get more into that as we go on. And as they continue talking, and one of the things that Akamian says to Proyas is there's faith that knows itself as faith, and then there's faith that confuses itself for knowledge. The first embraces uncertainty, acknowledges the mysteriousness of the God. It begets compassion and tolerance. Who can entirely condemn when they're not entirely certain they're in the right? But the second embraces certainty and only pays lip service to the God's mystery. It begets intolerance, hatred, and violence. And and then they argue back and forth about this stuff here and how it relates to the Holy War. And so, interesting observations and stuff like that. I do like that some of the epigraphs in here are written by Drusus Akamian. So that's always interesting to see, because he's given us a perspective later than the events that happened, or he's given us a perspective of the first apocalypse that he, I guess, witnessed, because I think he's like 300 years old or something like that. But so interesting stuff again. Another interesting observation when Akamian was speaking to Kellis, and they're talking about things, and then they go silent, as men often do. And it says here, the silences between men are always fraught with uncomfortable significance, accusations, hesitations, judgments of who is weak and who is strong. And the it's interesting because sometimes silences can also say, let's move on and recall these things at a better time. And that's interesting. That's true to a certain extent in a lot of cases. With myself, I think sometimes brevity is a virtue. but but this is a video where I talk a lot. But anyways, contradictions are what make life, right? Um, so let's see. Next we have. Next week there was a discussion between Proyas and Kellis, or yeah, or in the Sklimvendi maybe. Yeah, Nair. And there was a discussion about the origins of uh, of stars and what the sun means and stuff like that. And the they say that the thousand lights peeking through the leather of night, and which indicates that greater suns burn beyond this world. It's interesting to have that philosophy of the night and how those must be greater than where you're at. Uh, because sometimes philosophies look at the place they're at as greater than other places, and so it's a it's a opposite kind of philosophy that the Sklevendi have. So I found that very interesting. And Kellis informs Nair that he needs more than sorcery. He needs a nation. He's telling this to the Sklevendi Nair, and and this is because this is all in their quest to either defeat Mongus, his father, or confront him in some way, or still not 100% sure exactly what they hope to accomplish when they encounter Mongus. Um, but we'll see, I guess, in the future books because it doesn't happen here. I found it interesting that this whole book really is just a setup for the rest of the. I mean, it's a grand, huge setup, and this convergence, I think, at the end here is going to move it forward into bigger events. Uh, but it's just it really is a great explanation of the world. This book, and it was a fascinating exploration of this world, and it wasn't dry or boring at all. Which was great. I think that's well done. All right, next we have this Akamian is meeting. He has a confrontation, kind of a mental confrontation with the head of the Scarlet Spires that are there. So these two different schools of magic, and they have their little their little mentals. They're talking, and they have this little spat. This back and forth between them. So that was interesting. Just get a lot of insight into the reasoning behind the various factions for joining this holy war, and we get some insight into this guy Eliazaris, I think, who's the Scarlet Spire representative here, and his insight into his decision, why it was difficult to join this holy war, and what he hopes to get out of it and stuff like that. So that was some good information there. Moving on to chapter 17, we get we get this mention of Kellis being in this probability trance, and I never heard it phrased like that. I kind of like that phrasing, and where he assesses and extrapolates and reassesses the extraordinary twist of circumstances around him. He's trying to, he's trying to figure out what to do about it all. He's trying to project into the future about what his actions and what the actions of other people may or may not be. Very monk like. I like that. Um, And then they go back and we see some of Kellis's earlier training in life, and we see that some of the stuff that made him who he is. How when he was training, he would interrupt his instructor, and he would get smacked for it or whatever. And he was told interruption is weakness. It arises from the passions and not from the intellect. From the darkness that comes before. Yeah, interesting. I like that philosophy there. Not the, but that so we get some insight, and then we move on here, and somebody tells Kellis that this about this concept of, I think it's called Nan. It's Jnan, so I'm not sure if it's John or Nan. Anyways, um, and he's puzzled by this concept, and Proyas is like, "Oh, I never really thought about it that much. It def- it's defined as the war of word and sentiment. So, what you say and what you mean can be two different things, I suppose." But he also says far more than that, and it's the subtleties that guide the conduct between men, and something we simply do. And Kellis is like, wow, they just don't know what they're doing. They don't know. They know so little of themselves. So that's interesting observations. And we move on here. There's another part here where it says, Kellis is claiming to be less than what he seems to be, but in that manner does he move other men by seeming to be less than what he is. And this is Camion who's noticing that, which makes sense. Camion's a pretty insightful dude. Um, and then we have this next section here. Oh yeah, where he's doing this in the past again. Kellis's past. He's doing this logos chant, and he's doing this chant in his mind, because then it eventually gets ingrained in him, and it turns into nothing, no thought. And that kind of relates to the Prince of Nothing. So I like that little philosophical reference there. And let's see here. Oh, then we have where the Emperor calls Acamian, summons him, because they captured this dude who's been a advisor to the Emperor for 20 years or whatever, and comes to find out that this guy is a spy. He's an infiltrator. He's been doing this for a long time, and he's actually this creature that I don't know what he is, but Acamian realizes that he's from the consult. This thing called the consult. This boogeyman. This thing that was part of the first apocalypse, and so Drusus Acamian is quite familiar with them, but everyone else has kind of forgotten about them. But now we get confirmation that it is this guy Skios was actually working for that. And so there's a big confrontation there, and uh, you know, Acamian deals with it with sorcery somehow, barely getting out of there and saving the Emperor, really. And then we move on to an observation from Esme. We finally get back to her, and she's watching events from afar, and she's watching all these people come together, the Camians and Kellis and this other guy, and the Emperor, and all these people. And she's like, and she notices that all these people here, this in the heart of this holy war, that these men were more than human. They were Kahit, world souls, locked in the great wheel of great events. So she's thinking about this, but she's also, this is a way to let the reader know that these, this is the convergence. This is where all the stuff's happening. This is the fantasy part of this fantasy novel, and it's pretty cool. And the final chapter just basically puts everything together, puts everything in place, and spells out where we're at this time at the end of this novel. And so, what a stage setter! What a stage setter that this book was. What a stage setter that this final part was for going forward into the next book. I don't know when I'm going to start it, but I'll be thinking about it for a while. I want to really let this sink in for a while before I start another book, but we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see if I get to it by the end of the year. If not, I will definitely get to the second book early next year. That's my plan, and very pleased that I read this. And anyway, so if you've made it this far with me, thanks for watching, and let me know how you felt about Part 5 in the Holy War, and if I missed anything, and if I got something wrong, please let me know. I don't have any problem being corrected on this stuff because I really want to know. I really want to get it right and move forward in this series. And so it's been a great ride. And so thank you for watching, and be good to each other. Bye now.